Hi, this is Matt Drewette-Card, Curriculum Director for MSAD 46, and this is part of our video tutorial series. Today, we're going to be talking about redos, retakes, and managing late work. This is a big issue that's come up for a lot of districts and a lot of us regarding proficiency-based and standards-based learning and grading. So let's talk about the do-dos and the don't-dos of retakes and redos, etc. That's a lot of do's. So some common questions on thoughts on redos are why should we allow them at all? The real world doesn't allow for redos. I hear this a lot. I've heard this one quite a bit. Allowing for redos and retakes creates lazy and entitled students and does not prepare them for the real world. How many retakes can a student get? That's actually more practical. When is a redo or retake appropriate? Is it ever not appropriate? So these are some of the most common questions that get brought up when it talks about redos and retakes and managing all this late work stuff. So let's talk about some of them one at a time. So first of all, why why should we allow redos at all? Well, do you remember this old adage from an old proverb somewhere? If at first you don't succeed, try again. It's a pretty common expression. So, does that work in schools? And a lot of times it might not, but what about the real world? Are there examples where this works in the real world? And it turns out that there are. There are quite a few examples of real world redos. For example, here's a list of a number of standardized assessments that are used for college admissions, law school admissions, graduate school admissions, etc., becoming a teacher. And in each one of these cases, the individual can not only do the assessment once, but if they don't like their score, they can go back and do it again. That's pretty powerful. But that's it, right? That's the only place. Nope, there's actually more. There's a lot of different ways of licensure that if a person does not get the driver's license the first time, they can take the test again. They just have to demonstrate proficiency that they can do it. In every case here, you can do these things again. You might not have to demonstrate that you can hunt. It might just be an issue of paying for it. But the fact is, if you don't get a license one time, you can get it again another time. You don't get a fishing license one time, you can get it again. And what about the judicial system? Well, the judicial system is full of examples of second chances. It's full of examples of redos and retakes. These things really do happen in the real world. So to say that they don't is not accurate, because redos do happen. So let's talk about it in a school sense. You have a student, and the student is working towards a learning target. And first time the student takes it, student goes at it, hits it bullseye right away. Great, grand, wonderful. All right? So the next learning target comes in, and that student just misses it. Doesn't quite get there, isn't right there yet. And you say, all right, well, just go ahead and try it again. And that student misses again. Well, now what do you do? Well, historically, in school, it's been a thing where, if at first you don't succeed, try again, right? But in school, it's a little different. Because you give up because there's nothing you can do about it, and it wouldn't be fair to the other kids, and you don't get a second chance in the real world, and laziness, and blah, 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 blah. It's only in school where redos don't really happen. So, what we're trying to care more about is not this feeling of, oh, well, sorry, you didn't get it the first time or the second time. We got to move on. Nope, we got to move on. It's not that. In fact, our system, and we're talking about redos and retakes, we're getting rid of this, oh, well, moving on kind of idea. In fact, what that has done in the past is that has allowed students to get away with not learning, with not doing the work. So if we don't allow redos and retakes, that allows students to get away with stuff. That's actually more harmful to real world life than anything else. This actually helps us focus on the learning, and the learning most of all. Because that's why we're here, for the learning. Allowing redos or retakes focuses on the learning and says to the students, you're not going to get away with it that easily. No. We're not giving up on this. You might not have done it this way. We're going to find a different way for you to demonstrate that learning. That's the power of the redo. It puts that accountability back onto the shoulders of the student. So what about this idea that redos and retakes lead to lazy and entitled students? Well, we just kind of talked about how it puts the accountability back on their shoulders when done correctly. So what redos do is put the learning at the centerpiece of the classroom. It doesn't mean that you get the test done on the first try or the first take, or that other students had the chance to do it. They did it first and they did it better. They did it one time. They did it in the first chance, so you should have as well. Well, that's not really empathetic, because students come into school with different backgrounds, different beliefs. So redos and retakes are really grounded in an empathy-fueled mindset to try to understand the student, the learner, what they're going through. Some students might have desk space and time at home to be able to do the homework and the studying. Other students might not. Other students might go home in a one-bedroom, a studio apartment with 5 other people living there, and that student has to take care of their 3 siblings late at night while the parent goes out to work. Well, that student has a steeper hill to climb to get to the same end goal as another student. Redos and retakes also bring hope to students, because if they didn't do it the first time, oh, well, I can keep trying, as long as I just keep trying and show that effort, and we'll get to that part in a minute. They also bring accuracy to grading, because before, if you didn't allow retakes or redos, what you were really saying when you put in the grade in the gradebook is, well, the student got this grade for the first attempt, or for that attempt. And when you allow redos and retakes, it allows them to refine their work or to try again and to get better and better, and therefore the grade is actually more accurate about what they know and can do. That's a good thing, because grades are meant to be accurate. So how many retakes can a student get? Is there a number? 3? 5? I don't know. One student can demonstrate after 3 times, another after 5, and another after 7. It's less about the times that the student could redo it or retook it, but it's more about the times in between the redo and the retake. You know, what's the plan? What's the intervention? What are the supports that we're deciding? Was the student engaged in this process of the redo, the retake, managing this late work? Was the student trying? Was the student developing plans and strategies to accomplish the goal? How was the teacher involved? Were there teachers involved? So it's not about how many times they can do it, and then you can say, I'm giving up and we're moving on. No. It's the in-between. It's in between those how manys, because every student is going to need different supports depending on the situation and the classroom and the assessment or assignment. This idea that it's unfair to other students, it goes against the idea of equity versus equality. You can see the picture there. Equality is where everyone gets the same size of stool or crate to stand on to watch the game. But equity is where you give students what they need based on their needs. The core of learning for all students is an issue of equity over equality, and that's one of the things that redos and retakes really gets to the heart of. It's an issue of equity. And fair isn't always equal, as Rick Wormley very clearly and very succinctly and famously has said. So when is it appropriate? When is it not appropriate to do one? As Rick Wormley, back to him, says, redoing work is not to be taken for granted. Redos are something that should not be misused and can very easily be misused. Students should earn everything that they get, period. If there's no evidence that the student submitted the assignment, performed in the assessment, or even had a reasonable or honest attempt, the teacher should feel comfortable in giving that student a 0. I should preface that by saying, in our district, we use a 4-point scale, and the definition of a 0 means insufficient evidence or not yet assessed, and our scale is balanced and equally distributed. Also, getting a 0 is not final. It's a placeholder, and teachers should work with students to develop a plan to replace that 0. But the students need to implement and monitor that plan with guidance and support, of course. And this monitoring and support and this implementation of the students will differ between high school level and early elementary. Of course it will. That's obvious. But I also have to say it. So you do have to take different approaches based on the needs of the kids. A student should never be allowed to blow off an assignment or an assessment because they'll get another chance. I've heard this so many times. Well, I just didn't study, I didn't do anything, and then end of the day, I just kind of knew I'd fail the test, so I just put it on and I gave it and said, and I told my teacher, well, I'll just do it again another time anyway. I wasn't quite ready. No, no, no. That's manipulation, pure and simple. There's got to be a justification for it. If the student has missed several days, the student did not have the opportunity to do the redo, or didn't understand it, or said, I just wasn't ready to take the assessment then. I wasn't there yet. Okay, that's a justification. However, what's your timeline for doing a redo next? Before you hand this in to me and say, I don't know. No. What's your timeline to make sure that you do know this stuff? And is this attempt really honest and thorough? That's really the key thing. A lot of students, what I've heard, will just do this thing where they'll say, like, oh, I just didn't, like I said, the example that I gave you. But is that really honest? And in that case, a teacher should be comfortable saying, you're just blowing this off. I don't know if I'm going to give you a redo. I don't know if you've earned that redo. And by the way, I do know that in the title there is a misspelling. I do see that. But I'm in the middle of recording this now, and it's a one-time thing, so we're just going to go with it, okay? I'm not perfect. When a redo or a retake is done, when it's scored again, it should be given the full points every single time. This is not a thing where you say, I redo it, the best you can get is an 80, or the best you can get is a 2, or a 3. No. Full points. Every time. Here's an important delineation, too. Grades K to 10, deadlines can and should be somewhat flexible to allow for true and honest learning. That's why we're here. That's why they're here, to learn. However, students in grades 11 and 12, they're on their way out. And they are on that adult line. They're right there, off to college, off to career, something post-secondary, whatever. And deadlines should start to be stricter at these ages because students do need to be preparing for submitting and being able to submit high-quality work in a timely fashion. That's just good practice for our students. But it always has to come back to the learning. It should not be a thing where they just didn't want to do it, so they just got away with it. No. We focus on that, and we do not allow the students to make the decision of what is important for learning and what isn't. If teachers teach it, it's worth learning. Teachers do not deal in frivolity. We don't have time for that. If we're teaching it, it's important to be learned. So, how can we help you learn it? If this way didn't work, let's find another. Redos, retakes, and managing late work is a challenge. It's always hard, and it's never easy. However, there are some basic principles, and I hope you could go back and rewatch this to understand and to start applying into classrooms some redos, retakes, and managing late work principles. If you have any questions, you can contact me. My email address is on our website, aos94.org. Again, I'm Matt Drewette-Card, Curriculum Director for MSAD 46. Thank you for watching this installment of the MSAD 46 video tutorial series.